Alrighty, so today I wanted to do a Should You Summon for the new collab because it is, I'll be honest, it's a terrible time for a collab to drop. Normally we do not get a collab this early in the year. Normally it's around like May, April, before we get the first collab of the year, and it's the end of January / beginning of February because, you know, JP already has this. But the characters do seem pretty interesting. There are not 4 characters this time around, and there's another weird oddity where there's not a free character either, which is a bit unfortunate because honestly, if there was a free character, you'd only have to really summon for 2, which would be fantastic, but that is unfortunately not the case. So if you're new to the channel or anything and you want to chill and hang out with us, I'm sure we will be doing live summons later tonight whenever the banner drops, and you know, I'll be testing them out and everything. I post pretty much every single day. Feel free to subscribe, and if you are already not summoning, you don't need the info, I appreciate you clicking on the video anyway. But yeah, let's talk about this thing because it is quite a weird sort of setup we have here. Originally, when they showed off these characters, Zahard over here looked to be the best out of the you know, the few that they showed, because for some reason they actually did a good PvP showcase for once in their lives, and he looked insane. He looked crazy, but as I kind of suspected in the, you know, the showcase, I even think I said it in the recap video, they were pretty much using him in the absolute best possible case scenario he could have had. Like, he had level 3 cards, like, right out of the gate. They were using Gother to rank him up and everything. He had really low health. They had, I'm pretty sure they had Tear on the team, so he was getting Tear's Berserk from that passive, as well as his own passive increases his crit damage, I'm pretty sure, for every % of health lost. And yeah, they just ended up using a level 3 card that is an AoE with Spike on it, and not only that, but I can't remember if it's his passive or his card itself, we'll look at it in a second, but depending on what level card you use, he gets more damage dealt just for using like higher tier cards. So they literally like did the absolute most that they could to make sure that he did the craziest damage you'd seen from a new character. So he looked crazy. I think the general consensus now is that he's not nearly as good as they were kind of implying he would be. I think he's a little bit too specific in some of the scenarios that you need him to be in for there to be like a really good damage and stuff. Not saying he's bad, not saying he can't do those things, but it's not going to be, you know, like an every match sort of thing. So do take that into consideration. He's also a pretty selfish unit. Most of the unknown characters that we get either, you know, boost allies' basic stats or give some sort of stats or something like that to their team. He is a very selfish unit. He does not give anything to his allies. He is just taking from the allies, and then he boosts himself with his own passives. So he's not necessarily going to be helping the rest of your team, unfortunately, whereas we do have, I'm going to call this guy Viole. I don't know if it's Viole, I don't know how to say his name. I've heard people call him Bam. I don't want to call him Bam just because for people like me who don't know anything about Tower of God, if they're playing the game, you know, Bam is not anywhere in his actual title or like name in game, so it could be a little bit confusing there. So Viole is what I'm planning on calling. I guess his name is also Jyu or Jyu, I don't know, but Viole seems the best option. But he is PvE only, which they seem to want to always do a PvE only character with each of these collabs now, which is cool. I'm okay with it. Honestly, I think that most of the PvE characters are actually pretty useful in some of their own rights. He does not work in Demonic Beast Battle, which I think is completely fair. A lot of people always complain about that. I honestly think that it's nice that they just restrict that, just for the pure fact that you don't want a character like this to become the best thing that you can use on Demonic Beast Battle, considering those are something that you really have to grind out, which I guess you could say the same thing for like Demon King or something like that now. But you know, if he ended up being like best in slot for any of the teams for Demonic Beast Battle, anybody who starts playing the game after this collab ends will not be able to get the character, most likely, unless they end up doing a rerun, and so it just kind of helps in that regard. But from what I've seen, he looks awesome. He has like a red Arthur buff card, which is a little weird and old, but it actually works out pretty nicely, and I've seen him ran on DK so far. I've seen him ran on, obviously, the new final boss is a little bit skewed, because I'm pretty sure there's passives in place to make the Tower of God characters do more damage and stuff like that, so they're inherently better for that game mode. But most of the PvE applications that I've seen for him look really nice, so he's just going to be a cool character to have. I don't necessarily know that he's like a must-have, but if you're really looking to min-max DK, he does seem really good for that, so could be a really nice pickup. And then we also have Yuri, which is the girl over here. She actually seems pretty cool. She's like a really nice human team buffer, which is cool to see. I know a lot of people before the collab came out were saying that this is looking like it's going to be an unknown collab because of the origins of the characters and stuff in the actual show, or the series that they're from. But she is a human buffer, and she basically just, her holy relic, I know, just outright gives you crit defense and crit resistance for human allies, which is great. Just makes them inherently tankier. She has this weird AoE seal that you can do once you put a couple of stacks of her passives on the enemy, which is nice because it even seals ultimates, which means that melee can't use AoEs to gain stacks, which he's going to gain stacks from cleansing off some debuffs and stuff like that regardless, but he won't be able to use his really heavy-hitting AoEs. If you can, if he doesn't cleanse it off or anything, you'll be able to lock him down from being able to use his ultimate, which is insane. There's just a lot of like AoE kind of stuff in the meta right now, so that's honestly really cool. She has a level 1 stance cancel like Ghislaine, so that's honestly really cool. And whenever the character translations originally came out, they only showed the level 3 cards, and it looked like she just had 2 stance cancel cards. One was single target, one was AoE. But we'll look at it more in a second. But it's a stance cancel on the single target, and then it is nothing on level 1, removes buffs on level 2, and then cancels buffs and stances on level 3 for the other card, which is a little weird, and she has a cleave ultimate. Let's look at the banner really quickly. It is a 600 banner, which means that if you're looking to guarantee a copy of all 3 of these characters, you get really, really unlucky and you don't pull a single copy of any of them throughout the entirety of your summons, which hope to God that doesn't happen to you. Collabs are always really stressful because I don't want to spend too much, diamonds, and then, there's a bunch of characters to get. But worst case scenario, you'd have to spend 1,800, which is quite a pretty penny, of course, because you're not getting any of them for free. You do get a really decent amount of free summons. I want to say it's either 4 or 5 free multis just from the login bonuses and like the special missions and stuff like that. You get some extra tickets and everything. So that will be kind of nice. You will get a little bit of your way through the first rotation for free after you get those tickets, of course. But you do have to go 600 to guarantee a character. Hopefully, we can pull some extra copies of the characters throughout the rotation. If they do, of course, for every collab, they bring out this SSR guaranteed ticket where you can basically guarantee yourself one of the 3 units because they're the only ones that you can pull from the ticket. So if you really wanted to and you're willing to spend the money on it, which I think for the U.S. currency, it's like $24 for the ticket, which is maybe a bit pricey. But if it's between, having to spend potentially 600 diamonds versus just paying the money outright, depending on your outlook on it, that could be worth it or not worth it. You could potentially buy that, and then you'd only have to do 1,200 diamonds, maybe. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on whether or not I want to buy it or not. It could save me some diamonds in the long run. I do have a decent amount on the account already, so I'm kind of tempted to risk it, but we'll see how things go. The characters are, of course, rated up. They're 0.25, so that's good, I guess. It's a 0.75, I guess, out of the 3% that you're going to be summoning for to get these new characters. But some of the unfeatured characters are actually pretty decent as well. We have Blue Crazy Roxy. We have Tyr on here, which is great. I don't think he has it on here, but Red Freya is also on the banner, so he's missing that one. Or she, I think it's a woman who runs this website. But either way, there's actually some pretty decent picks in here. God, I can't speak anymore. But either way, Miguelda's in here. That's cool. The red Miguelda's a little bit more, niche. But Green Matrona. It's a couple of not necessarily seasonal characters, but more recent-ish banners that weren't worth summoning on. There's a couple of characters like that in here, a couple of catastrophes which aren't the greatest, and then for some reason Zaratros is also here. But yeah, the characters honestly look really cool. He's of course PvE only, doesn't work in Demonic Beast like I said. He has a defense-related stat lower card, kind of like the newer Blue Aaron, which is cool, I guess. It's pretty helpful, but I feel like in PvE scenarios there are a lot of debuff immunity situations going on, so not 100% sure how useful this card is actually going to be, but at least it'll deal some pretty decent damage. I have seen it do some pretty good stuff. The buff card, like I said, is from Red Arthur, like the old school one. So it's one ally gets 20% basic stats. all allies get 20% basic stats, and then cleanses and then puts on debuff removal, or it puts on debuff immunity for 3 turns and 30% basic stats for the whole team on level 3. So obviously that's pretty good. Sever ultimate, and then I think, okay, so at level 1 it does not put any Power of Thorns on, but we'll look at that in the in the passive. So the passive is, at the start of the battle in PvE, apply Power of Thorns to the hero, and when Power of Thorns is removed, rank up the hero's skills. So it is rank up the hero's skills, so it's not your allies, it's just his skills. I was kind of hoping it would be a rank up in PvE for the whole team, but unfortunately not quite the case. But Power of Thorns is increase allies damage by 20%, decrease allies damage taken by 20%. So kind of like the Margaret buff, if you're familiar. So more damage dealt, less damage taken. And then when it's removed, you do rank up skills. And then when Power of Thorns is removed for the first time, increases all allies' basic stats by 20%. So if they have any sort of buff removal, or if they it expires, for example, the whole team gets a basic stat increase, which is cool. Only for the first time, but still not too bad. I don't know how many turns it lasts or anything, to be honest with you. If you do know that, let me know. But he seems pretty good overall, PvE-wise. His Holy Relic is actually really cool. If you're familiar with the Valentine's Day Elaine, it's basically just her passive on top of this character. So increases status-related buff effects on all allies by 1.5x in PvE, excluding extort. So basically the way that it works is, if you have any sort of basic stat increase or whatever, it's basically just going to get extra value out of that. So for example, the 20% basic stats that you're giving to your allies, it's now going to be basically a 30%, which is pretty interesting. So if you get the 30% one, it's basically 45%, I think, if the math is right on that. I'm actually quite stupid. Don't take my word for it. Honestly, he looks great. He looks pretty like useful overall. I was really hoping he'd be free, but moving on to Yuri. For every human ally participating in battle, increases their basic stats by 5%, so 15% outright, which is on par with the new Shin, which is kind of weird that they would release that character for humans and then turn around and do this one literally the next banner. Whenever the hero uses a skill or human allies take damage from the enemy skills, apply Divine Rose Water for 4 turns to the enemy. When the hero uses a skill on the enemy that has max stacks of Divine Rose Water, applies a debuff that seals AoE attacks for 1 turn. So pretty helpful. I don't think that whenever you attack somebody with max stacks, it doesn't get rid of the stacks or anything like that, but obviously they only last for 4 turns, so depending on, how often you can reapply them or everything, but they're also getting them from attacking you as well, so they reach max stacks pretty fast. Divine Rose Water itself is damage dealt minus 10%. Can be stacked up to 3 times. So they could potentially get 30% less damage dealt, which is honestly pretty nice. It just, overall, her kit is just going to make the human team a lot tankier, harder to kill, which is kind of what they need, to be honest. Like, they're a little squishy. They obviously have really good damage dealt already. Like, you can dish out some really good stuff with the humans, especially with like LR Escanor and Purgatory Bond, or Transcendent Bond, not Purgatory. I still have PTSD. Cancel stances on level 1, which is fantastic. You do have an AoE here, which the AoE card I think is going to be more useful for just AoE sealing the entire enemy team once they have max stacks on. But if you do end up getting higher levels of it, removing buffs is obviously kind of nice, depending on what team you're facing, of course. And then an AoE stance cancel is also kind of cool, but the odds of you getting a level 3 in PvP, probably not the greatest. But, you can use this character anywhere. She's not actually locked down. You just have to have her on the field. She does not work in the sub-slot. AoE, or the ultimate itself, is applies 1 Divine Rose Water effect to 1 enemy for 4 turns and inflicts cleave damage equal to 500% of attack. So it is a single target, which is, maybe a little bit controversial, I guess, but it does hit pretty hard. Cleave is honestly really nice. I do like cleave cards, and it does apply 1 extra stack, so that's pretty cool. It doesn't have the 6/6 effect here, so I can only assume it's going to apply 3 Divine Rose Water, so that way it maxes out the passive. But yeah, it actually says it right down here. So it actually maxes it out at 5/6 and 6/6. So that's actually pretty cool. And then if you get her anything above 1/6, it's 2 Divine Rose Waters for 2/6 through 4/6. So that's not too bad, honestly. She actually seems really cool. I'm very interested to try out the character. I do think that she is pretty interesting. Her Holy Relic is increases allies' crit resistance and crit defense by 30%. So just really nice. And this actually doesn't say humans only, so even though the passive is for humans, I wonder if you could just try to run her on the enemy or on the team just for, you know, buff's sake, like just for like trying to tank, which could be kind of interesting. I don't know. We'll maybe mess around with that, but she's cool. I do like her quite a bit. Zahard, on the other hand, is the one that was pretty insane. He reminds me kind of Reinhardt in a way, in the sense that like he has this like cycling passive thing, but his is more determined. It's not completely random like Reinhardt's was. So his passive is, at the start of the battle, apply Mark of Stability to the hero for 1 turn, and when the buff is removed, apply Shinsui's Power to the hero for 1 turn. When Shinsui's Power is removed, apply King's Resolve to the hero for 5 turns. Also, for every unknown ally in the battlefield, increases basic stats of the hero by 7%. So, like I said, he's not giving his allies any buffs. He's only taking buffs from having extra team members and stuff. He is the only one out of the 3 that is actually an unknown race, so he's going to be for the unknown team. The other 2 are, I guess, you know, Viole isn't actually necessarily locked down to one specific team, but Yuri obviously kind of wants to be ran with humans. But so you basically start turn 1 with Mark of Stability, which is decreases unknown allies' damage taken by 30%. Pretty nice. And it's at the start of the battle, which is very important, because that means as soon as you go, you can go second with this character. You'll have the 30% damaged, you know, stability, whatever you want to call it, damage taken buff on, so that way they're not going to be able to hit you nearly as hard. As soon as it ticks back over to your turn, actually I think it might be as soon as as soon as it hits your turn, this buff gets removed because it's already been 1 turn technically because of the way the game works, and you get Shinsui's Power, which is the hero's HP does not fall below 1, so he has immortality on. When using single target attacks, ignore enemies' crit defense and crit resistance, which means that he's going to hit really hard with the single target, of course. And the single target also has a really nice modifier on it as well, so that's going to be for 1 turn. So basically, the first 2 turns, you're kind of getting through these first 2 buffs, and then once you get to the 3rd turn, and any turn after that for the 5 turns that it lasts, you'll have King's Resolve. There's a lot here. King's Resolve is, for every 1% of missing HP, increases crit damage of the hero by 1%, so kind of sort of like Tears, even though I'm pretty sure Tears actually maxes out at some point. When using AoE attacks, increases crit chance by 100%. So the AoE spike card that you have here, which is 2 times crit damage, is going to be not guaranteed to crit, but it's going to be very likely. Grants damage increase based on rank of the skill used. So this is where it gets insane. Level 1 card, you're going to do 30% extra damage. Level 2 card, 60%, and level 3 is 120%, which is why in the showcase they had him really low health. They had a level 3 spike card in hand. They hit King's Resolve passive, and then they used that level 3, and he just absolutely murdered the entire field, which was, you know, it was impressive. It really is kind of cool, and when the stars align, it's going to be super satisfying to use this, of course, but, you know, I don't know how often it's actually going to happen. I'm still interested. I really want to try the character out, see how difficult it is to pull off, or if it's just kind of like an inconsistency kind of thing. Because if it's just a little bit inconsistent, I don't really mind too bad. But if it's something that's almost never going to happen, then obviously that's where the character is going to be a lot less useful. But his single target has Spear's Shine, which is a new card, of course, 3 times Pierce rate, so it's a Pierce card, plus 40% attack when using a skill. So it just deals 40% extra damage no matter what, basically. Modifiers on it are fine, 150 all the way up to 450. Plus, if you're using this on turn 2, you're actually going to ignore the enemy's, you know, crit resistance and crit defense with it because it's a single target, which means it's going to hit really hard. The AoE is Spike, of course, which just does 2 times crit damage, sorry. So it's going to hit really hard because you're gaining 100% crit chance whenever you have King's Power. So you're basically saving this card for turn 2, this card for turn 3, and then big damage, profit, question mark. His Holy Relic is whenever the mark of the stability, Shinsui's Power, and King's Resolve is removed from the hero, remove all debuffs applied to the hero. So, for those first 3 turns, as he's cycling through his passives, he's going to cleanse every time one of them gets removed and it moves to the next one. Obviously, once you get King's Resolve, it's for 5 turns. So, these are all blue buffs, by the way, which means they can be removed. So, unless this, you know, unless once you get King's Resolve, unless they remove it, it's going to take 5 turns for you to get another cleanse, which realistically, at 7 turns in, if the game is not over yet because of the crazy characters that we have, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I mean, sometimes matches can last a long time, but for the most part, I don't really see this being a huge factor. But kind of interesting nonetheless. His ultimate is also pretty up there. Increases crit damage by 50%. This is at 1/6 for 2 turns. Inflict sever damage, which is 3 times crit chance, so it's going to be pretty much guaranteed to crit. Equal to 300% of attack on all enemies, and grants immortality for 1 turn. So it doesn't look like the immortality actually goes up, but it goes all the way up to 500% damage, and the crit damage increase that you get can go all the way up to 150%. So not only are you going to be having a really high chance to crit here, but you're increasing the damage that you're going to be dealing with the crit as well. So he's pretty interesting. Definitely like a lot going on here. A little bit more of like a specific kind of passive instead of it just being like broadly like really good overall. It's like, all right, you need to do these steps in order, and if they mess up the steps at all, you're going to have to, you know, kind of mess around with that a little bit. But yeah, definitely more of an interesting one. I would say overall, I know this video has been super long, and I'll have timestamps and everything, so if you want to just skip through it, which I should have said that way earlier. But I say it's a pretty good value here. I think if you're interested at all in the unknown team, like if you're an unknown main, he could actually be a really nice character to have. I would maybe wait and see some gameplay if you haven't already from the JP side for, you know, before summoning for him specifically, because honestly, unknown wise, he's pretty selfish and a little specific, so he might not actually be like a total game changer here. If you're a human player, I typically do like to gravitate towards the human team. I think I'm going to 100% want this character right here. So Yuri is like not necessarily a must summon, but because she's a collab and she's exclusive, I really want to have this character just in case she ends up becoming like, you know, super, super good in the future for whatever reason, and because I just like humans, so she's going to fit right in. Do note that the next festival is more than likely Chaos Arthur. It could obviously be something else, but he is a human character. I don't know if because he's Chaos Arthur, if they'll try to slap Unknown on him. That would be very unfortunate, but as far as I know, he should be human, which means that, who knows, maybe she could be even more helpful whenever he drops. And then for Viole, on the other hand, he's just a really well-rounded PvE character that's really nice to have. I don't know that it's necessarily like, you gotta have this guy, but he seems good. The nice basic stat increases and stuff like that are great. You know, he ranks up his own cards and stuff, which means, you know, you can use him for some of the like turn or phase 2 stuff on Demon King, because, you know, you got to deal with card ranks and everything. And then you know, he has a buff card and a debuff card, which is cool because that way in phase 1 of the Demon King you can, you know, use those cards respectively if you need to. So I think it's pretty good. The banner itself is also pretty nice overall. I think it's good, especially for a collab. Most collab banners are pretty bad. So I would say if you are willing to summon, you like the unknowns, you like the humans, you want a really good PvE unit, by all means, go for it. I think you could possibly get away with skipping this one. Obviously, just got out of 2 festivals, a lot of stuff going on, potentially another festival in the next month or so. And I think that it's already been leaked that the next character that's coming out is a Valentine's Day Queen Diane. I don't know how good she's going to be, of course. We've just only seen like the outfits and stuff from her from the leaks, as far as I know. But I don't know how, you know, that will kind of affect things. Maybe you could save just in case to see what that banner and that character is going to do. But yeah, I don't know. You could probably get away with skipping this one, to be honest. But just note, you know, collab characters are always incredibly exclusive. So that means if you don't summon for them, who knows when they'll come back, if they ever do. And yeah, sometimes it's nice to have some of these niche characters, especially like if you didn't summon for Mushoku Tensei, for example. The fact that Yuri stance cancels on level 1 could be really nice to have at some point. I know that I really like that from Ghislaine sometimes. But, you know, she's obviously locked down to unknowns. Yuri's unlocked, or locked kind of down to humans, so I don't know, maybe kind of niche, but either way, that's pretty much it for me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the banner, the characters. I'm sure you guys have been watching some of the gameplay like I have, and yeah, I'm interested to summon. I think that these characters look pretty fun overall. If you are planning on summoning and you don't stop by the stream for me to tell you then, I hope you guys have a good summon session. Hopefully you don't waste too many diamonds, and yeah, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Feel free to subscribe. I'll see you guys tomorrow, or later tonight for summons, or tomorrow for the uploads. I don't know. whichever one you want to do.